people vote for Andrea Horwath as the next mayor of Hamilton?
Well, I'm really excited about our city, and I believe that all of the experience I've gained will really help us hit the ground running and realize the potential and opportunity that our city has. It's just, it's an exciting time, and I know that I can bring what I've gained in my years of experience to make a difference for Hamiltonians.
What's exciting you the most?
There's a couple of things. There's definitely of course, the LRT, but also the investment that's coming to Hamilton. There's the Stelco lands, which are being refurbed by Slate Asset Management. I've actually gone on a tour of that property, so green jobs coming to Hamilton. There's been lots of investment that's been coming, which is fantastic. We have some challenges, no doubt, but particularly housing, which I can talk a little bit about. But we have our best days ahead of us in this city, and I'm really excited about the future.
You have a lot. Most people go from mayor to provincial to federal. You're going like from long-time provincial politics, dealing with gigantic issues that affect not just Hamiltonians, to now this level where it's almost like big fish, small pond type situation. Like, what kind of, from your experience at Queen's Park, what advantage does that give you dealing with the issues at hand here?
Well, I actually do believe that it's really important to have experience when you're taking on the job of mayor in a city like Hamilton. I mean, we're a pretty big city, and our city needs that kind of leadership. And I believe I bring that. So there's no doubt that I've learned a lot and that I've gained a lot of experience, but my passion has always been fueled by the people of Hamilton. It was wanting to work for the people of Hamilton and change Hamilton for the better that got me into politics in the first place. That was back in 1997. I served on council for 3 terms. The people of Hamilton gave me the opportunity to serve at the provincial board of government. I have those relationships, I have those connections, I know how to get things done, and I'll be able to hit the ground running when election day comes, and I think that's important. And again, those kinds of experiences, that kind of capacity is really important for the job of mayor, and it's really important for the job of mayor in a city as complex, as wonderful, and as big as the city of Hamilton.
Yeah, and I think Hamilton's grown a lot since you're a city councilor. You live here, and maybe it's just because we're so close to it, because we're the media and we cover it. There's something about the way city council operated.
Sure.
In the last couple of years, it was almost like a small town council for a gigantic city that is growing every single day. Houses are $1 million each now, average. But they still acted like a small town council.
Sure.
If you're elected mayor, how do you change that dynamic to start operating like a bigger city that deserves that type of leadership?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things. First and foremost, I'm glad you mentioned the housing issue, because it's a big issue, and it's one of my priorities, absolutely. There's no doubt that the entire spectrum of housing issues is on the table here. We need housing that's for people who are lower income, people who are vulnerable, housing supports for people that have mental health and addictions issues. Young people in our city can't afford to buy a house in the community that they were raised in these communities here. That's problematic. So we need more housing of all types, and that's something I'm going to focus on. But you're right, I do hear from people concern about how Hamilton's council operated, the kinds of decisions that were made that forgot about the everyday people of our city. That's got to stop. I mean, we do need to make sure that we are transparent, that we're engaging, that we have a bigger picture sense of where we're headed as a city, because that change is coming, and we have to be able to seize that opportunity and run with it to make sure Hamilton grows in the way that we can all be proud of, and that also solves some of the challenges that we're facing. I believe in transparency. I believe in communication. I'm a collaborator, and looking forward to bringing that kind of style of leadership to the city.
Yeah, you talk about transparency. Obviously, this is nothing that's not your fault, but the cover-ups of Redwood Valley Parkway, safety reports, Trudeau Creek. Like, how do we regain people's trust that, if elected, that this is going to be a city hall that is accountable for its mistakes and addresses things instead of trying to just gloss over stuff and kind of go on the cheap, trying to fix the big problems that cost lives?
No, you're absolutely right, and it's been really disappointing for people to see that happen over those last number of years. But what we do know is it doesn't have to be that way. We do know that kind of way of operating can be addressed, and I actually have made a commitment in my action plan to put a committee together within the first 90 days of my term in office to invite people to have that conversation, everyday Hamiltonians, people that represent the diversity of our community, to sit, and not a formal committee of council, but an advisory committee to the mayor, to sit and have a conversation about what does transparency look like? What kind of communication do you want from your city? What kind of accountability do you expect as a citizen of Hamilton? And again, that's the way I do things. And I believe if you pull people in, and make the changes based on what people want to see, then you are going to be very, very successful in making that change happen. That happens with the committee. It also happens at City Council and with staff.
And then, so like talking about working with City Council, how about working with the province? Premier Ford, obviously this strong mayor's thing, it's going to hit Ottawa. They don't want it. Toronto seems to be kind of going with it. We all think it's eventually going to happen here. We're the next biggest municipality in Ontario after those two. We asked Ford, are you going to be able to work with Andrea if she wins? Obviously there's lots of butting of head. He said stuff about you. Are you going to be able to work together if that were to come to pass? Would you even let a strong mayor's bill happen here?
Well, so there's a couple of things. First and foremost, I absolutely will be able to work with Premier Ford and the government. It's something that it's just the way politics works. I had a job to do. I did my job, but it's not personal. I think that the mayor has seen, or rather the Premier has seen, what potential and opportunity the city of Hamilton has, and I'm happy about that. When he had his announcement at the Centennial Parkway GO station, it was really, really clear that he feels the same way, that he knows that I will work for Hamilton. He'll be on that road as well. His MPPs recently, the two Conservative MPPs in Hamilton, have both recently said that they're happy to work with me. One of the things that's in my action plan is to put together a Team Hamilton approach, so that we have MPPs from all of the orders of government, or so all of the parties. So that means the Conservatives, that means the NDP, there are Liberal MPs, all of us, there are school board trustees, all of us need to be working with the Team Hamilton approach. And I have those relationships already, and I know that I'll be able to pull those folks together, because everybody is in it for the same reason. We love our city. We love our city, and we know that together we can solve problems.
So let's circle back to housing, because that is the most important. Like, Hamilton used to be the place where you could get an affordable home, a good bang for your buck. But now I'm finding Hamiltonians have to move to Smithville or to Halifax, Alberta. And how do we make it more affordable for everyday Hamiltonians, and also for those who are, on ODSP, afford living here?
Well, there are really some solutions to this concern. One of them is we need to build more housing. I've heard a lot of concerns from not-for-profit developers, for-profit developers, all kinds of feedback that things take too long. We need to speed up the process. If housing's the number one issue, then it has to be the number one focus. So I do have plans in my action plan to speed up the processes to get the housing built. More housing is going to reduce the prices in the housing stock overall. We have not-for-profit providers of social housing or affordable housing that have about 3,000 units ready to go. All they need is some help from the city to make those units a reality. We have people who are in dire need of appropriate housing. It's shameful that we haven't unlocked that potential, and so I'm committed to doing exactly that. We also know that there are folks that have serious mental health and addictions problems. We have people who are unhoused throughout our city, and what we need to do is make sure that we're providing transitional housing with supports that helps them get on their feet. Yes, some of that's going to take some help from the federal government, the provincial government. As I said, I have those relationships already, and look forward to working with them. And that's, part of that table, having MPPs and MPs and school board folks and myself as the mayor at that conversation is going to help find the pathways to get some of those investments into Hamilton.
And so like buying a house and finding a home is one thing, but like living in Hamilton, we've covered a lot of issues among racism. You know, Hamilton unfortunately led the country in hate crimes.
I know,
at
it's
one
terrible.
point. Kojo Damthi just had a white supremacist sticker on his bus shelter ad. What could you do to be an ally, to make life more comfortable, more safe for visible minorities and those underrepresented people?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that members of the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, people of color community have seen a lot of racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. It is terrifying for folks, and it shouldn't be. People should be able to live their lives in Hamilton, contribute to our city, succeed in our city, know that their kids are being treated with respect at school in our city without having to worry. So I believe a lot of that comes with inviting people in, and it's something I've done all my life. Prior to being elected to City Council, I co-chaired the Hamilton anti-racism group. It was called the Community Coalition Against Racism. I helped build the equity and it's called the Equity and Access Office in Hamilton City Hall, which has now been disbanded, but I've always worked on these kinds of concerns because I believe that everybody belongs in our city and everybody should be respected and have a chance to thrive in our city. Voting for a mayor for a thriving Hamilton means everybody is able to thrive. So I do have these connections and networks as well in the city. And when I talk about, for example, a leadership table that deals with, or a leadership, not a leadership, but a table that deals with the conversation around trust and accountability and those pieces, I specifically said a diverse representation of Hamiltonians. It's about inviting people in. I know how to do that. I did that in my role as an MPP and as a leader. My party, when I was first elected, was not very diverse, although we talked about it. We talked a good game, but we didn't walk that walk. Now we have the most diverse political party in Ontario. We have, sitting in the legislature, we've had over 50% women in this last election. The two prior elections, 50% women. We've had the number of firsts. The first First Nations person, the first person from Bangladesh, woman from Bangladesh, elected to our legislature. The first woman who was Tibetan. We had a number of LGBTQ folks sitting in the legislature as MPPs. Why? Because it's not about appointing somebody to fill that role as a token. It's about making sure that you're inviting people in, you're constantly having those conversations, and you're creating not only space for people's voices, but you're listening to people's voices as well. There's nothing negative about that at all. And as we show that kind of leadership at the city level, that will help, I think, to push away some of these negatives that we're facing. And I just want to say, what happened to Kojo was terrible, terrifying and terrible. I did tweet out when I found out about it almost immediately, and it's just not acceptable. So the other thing about racism is you have to call it out. You have to call it out. You have to tackle it when you see it. That's the fact is, that's how you actually start to diminish those acts of hate, by saying we don't accept that in our city. That's not what Hamilton is all about. And as a mayor, I would be doing that each and every time it happens.
You'll also work alongside police, some members of BIPOC communities there's not a lot of trust there. The police service board council looks a certain way, is made up of certain things. Is there anything that you would see if elected that you can maybe change things up to try to increase trust? They have a chief who seems to be a personable guy, but what else could? So
there's no doubt that conversation around who are the voices around all of our city committees and all of our structures. Let's look at our staff. Let's look at who it is that's serving the public. When somebody comes to City Hall, is there anybody there that kind of looks like them or that reflects who they are? These are the kinds of things I changed in the NDP, and it's something we need to change. We are growing as a city. We're inviting people in. We need people from all over the world, and all over the country and all over Ontario to choose Hamilton. That's how we grow in a way that is a cosmopolitan growth. Growth for the year 2022 and beyond means we're including everyone. And so all of the structures that we have and the committees that we have and the staffing that we have needs to reflect a dynamic, diverse city.
How do you attract more businesses and not give them these perks of, hey, you don't have to pay property taxes?
Yeah.
Like U.S. Steel didn't pay property taxes. It's a gigantic piece of land. How do you bring that different types of revenue? So
that's actually a really great point, because the other thing we need in Hamilton, yes, we need housing and it's a priority, but we also need good jobs. We have, MAC and we have Mohawk, great institutions. We need to keep that brain power here in Hamilton. We need to make sure people can actually get jobs that pay the bills and allow them to live here. And so that's a big focus for me as well. You talked about Stelco. Absolutely, the problem we have is the majority of our taxes are coming from residential. We've lost a lot of industrial jobs, so the balance is off in terms of the ratio between residential and commercial industrial. What we need to do is grow the pool of taxes in commercial industrial. That means encouraging that investment. So as we see Slate Asset Management, for example, I toured with them last week to talk about their vision. That's okay. To talk about their vision for the Stelco lands that they've bought up. It was so exciting. They're estimating when that project's finished in a couple of years' time, and it's gradual, like it's not all at once, so the jobs will start coming as soon as and construction starting next year. So it's not like this is going to happen 20 years from now. Construction starting in the spring. It's almost completely cleaned now in terms of the old structures. So that's going to be jobs. And they said that as they continue to grow, these are green jobs of the future, which is so exciting. And they figure they'll be able to have between 6,000 and 8,000 people working on that site. That's exciting. That will become productive tax producing land as well, because they'll be commercial and not residential, but commercial and industrial, light industrial, green industrial on that site. I also think there's a lot of opportunity to encourage some of the growth in some of the industries that we already have. So we know that there's a big interest in film, and there are people here who are producers and other people within the film industry that are so excited about the opportunity here. So I'm talking to some of those folks. How do we really go forward and explode the film industry in Hamilton in a way that's respectful of neighbors and of communities? Because sometimes those film shoots can be a little bit disruptive. But there's huge studios being built in Tiffany Lands, which is in the North End. That's exciting. We also have an amazing arts and cultural scene, and I believe Hamilton can become a music city. Our music tradition and history here is rich and deep, all kinds of music, and we need to take advantage of that. So there are ways through arts and culture, there are ways through using existing land like the Stelco lands, there's the film industry. There's the digital sector, which I haven't even touched on. And again, we need to be attracting young people into the digital sector here, provide space for them, and encourage those companies, those startups, as well as those companies. McMaster Innovation Park does a great job in helping companies scale. And when companies scale, they provide more jobs. So there's just a lot of great partnerships that are here. We just have to maximize them.
And so, yeah, a lot of politics, all this stuff, but who is Andrea, the person? Like, off camera, we talked about your Basel plans. Like, is there a book you're reading? Are there shows you like? What are you binging? What are you listening to? What movies do you like? Are you a Marvel fan? Like, what's your?
Oh my gosh.
Who are you?
Well, so I like to cook, and I like to bake. So my basil plant, is getting a little bit of frostbite on those cold nights. I got to bring it in and make some pesto. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make pesto this year because I'm just a little bit worried about timelines with the election. But I'm like everybody else. So do I binge? Rarely, because I rarely have the time when it comes to Netflix. But I did watch the Emmys, and I saw White Lotus was winning all the awards. So I binged White Lotus during the campaign. I binged White Lotus just to take my mind off of things, right? So I don't have a lot of time, but I do pick up kind of what's going on, what's kind of in the trend. Music, I like all kinds of different music. I like, indie music, I like classical music, I like jazz. So I'll just put on the radio, and depending on the mood that I'm in, I'll flick around and find something that's kind of melding with the mood I'm in.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're a Ticats fan?
Oski wee wee, Oski wawa, holy Mackinac, Tigers, eat 'em raw.
Hamilton's hosting Grey Cup again.
Which is great.
If elected, how would you make that event a gajillion times better than the last time? Hopefully they win, but what would you
Well,
do?
that would be the most important, that they actually win.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think that the Tiger Cat spirit is massive in Hamilton, and what we want to see is a Grey Cup that grabs hold of that spirit, whether or not we are actually in the game. And I would love for the Cats to be in the game. I was thrilled at the game on the last weekend when we won, which was fantastic. But we know the team's been kind of up and down. And one of the things about Hamilton Tiger Cats is they have guts and they have spirit. And so I'm looking forward to that. But one of the things that these kinds of games bring, like the Grey Cup, they bring people to our city. They expose our city to people from other parts of Canada. They help small businesses. They provide some economic return. All of those things are positive. Plus, we're a sports-oriented town as well. We have a lot of great sports teams here, and having those championship-type games here, it not only pays homage to all of the athletes in our city, professional athletes, but also encourages young people as well to get engaged with sport. And I think that that's very, very valuable.